we have taken some delay, so no on-time departure, but I am aiming to achieve an on-time arrival, which I think we can be judged well on if we achieve that in the industry, as per norms. So second of our panels on the Advanced Air Mobility Roundtable is looking at policy certification and global harmonization. I'm delighted that chairing our session today is Shri Faiz Ahmed Kidwai, our Director General of the world famous DGCA, and a critical body, of course, in our roadmap to advanced air mobility. So I'm going to ask Sir to make a few comments to get us going, and then DGCA will lead us off. As with the last session, we are short on time. We have many contributors and speakers. We will get to all of you, so you will all speak in the time we have available. So, but Sir, if you could get us going, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to chair this panel and engage in a dialogue that brings together such diverse expertise on emerging technologies. Advanced air mobility and new certification pathways, as we have seen over the last 1.5 years, are no longer distant possibilities. They are realities, and they demand frameworks that are agile, transparent, and globally harmonized. India has already established guidelines to support the operations of eVTOL aircrafts, yet we have many challenges still. How do we uphold the higher standards of safety while fostering the rapid innovation that is transforming aviation? How do we secure funding and enable financial scalability for projects and institutions in this space? How do we build and access a skilled workforce, ensure continuing airworthiness, and deliver a sustainable return on investment? Through this forum, our collective responsibility is to create conditions where innovation can flourish responsibly and above challenges that can be addressed. That requires close collaboration with international partners, with industry, and academia to ensure interoperability, mutual recognition, and trust across borders. I look forward to the discussions in this session, not only to share India's journey, but also to learn from each one of you. Together we can move beyond compliance towards collaboration, ensuring that policy and certification serve as enablers of the future that we all aspire to build. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, creating the conditions where innovation can flourish. I think that is the call to action and the phrase I'd like to take away from this session today as we get into the technicalities. I'd like to go to Kanika first on behalf of the AAM task force at FICCI to help set the scene for that theme.
Hi, thank you, Jonathan. And I'm very sad to see numbers having thinned so much after the previous session. We didn't have place to sit in the previous session, and suddenly everyone's gone. I don't know if it's the regulators' effect or Jonathan and I bored you too much. But I just wanted to quickly talk about the Advanced Air Mobility Task Force that we have at FICCI here, which has been working with both the ministry and the regulator to help build the advanced air mobility ecosystem in India. So we just wanted to thank you from our side. Manish sir has been very, very proactive along with his team, and he's been really helping us build the required framework, being very patient with us. We're a bunch of children who are very excited in a candy shop. We keep asking for a lot of things. And I just wanted to thank the regulator from the task force's side for their time. And I know this is something which eats on to the day-to-day working of DGCA, and we are also aware that you have a lot of bigger challenges to solve, but you've been giving us a lot of time and energy and helping us pave the path forward, for which we're very grateful. We did, just to bring you up to speed from the previous session, we did impress upon the Secretary that it's not only the DGCA whose help we need, we also need the local state bodies to work with us, like the municipal cooperation, the urban development corporations, etc. And he did emphasize on the importance of the same, and has confirmed that we can go ahead with small subcommittees where we can work with these individual state governments to figure out the framework that will be required to make eVTOLs a success locally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kanika. Yes, I think this whole question of coordination and what sort of groups and organizations do we need that can look across industry but also across government and agency. I echo Kanika's comments with the work DGCA has been doing already has been phenomenal. It really, and I can say for someone who's also often outside India talking advanced air mobility, it has been fantastic to be able to point to the working groups that are already underway at DGCA and already publishing the guidelines that we need. So that is crucial. And on that note, I'm very pleased to hand over to Manish Kumar from DGCA to give us a quick overview and update on that work.
Thank you, Jonathan. A very good evening, good afternoon, Chair, all the co-panelists. And it's my pleasure to talk about the work which DGCA has done and the story behind it. And yes, advanced air mobility represents an era shift with regard to urban air mobility in the rural landscape, and makes it more accessible, environment friendly, and within this, as I said, urban domain. But then it has a lot of challenges because new technologies which are being integrated in this vehicle, the kind of fidelity which is expected, and the infrastructure in terms of vertiport and in terms of digital assets for the navigation, and for that purpose is new certification standards, which at the moment all the regulators are very conservative about having the because the machine has yet not been certified as such. So we are working at a very conservative processes. Similarly, acceptability among the general public, the security issues, all those issues which and the environment issues which are which we can foresee and which other regulators and at ICAO level is being seen. Those are the challenges before us, and take into consideration all those challenges, we decided our framework, how do we proceed in this matter, because this is something which would come and make things much different and much easier for all the people. So accordingly, we designed an entire plan, phase-wise plan, and how the complexity would increase as far as the operations is concerned. And to support that plan, we created 6 working groups. So 6 working groups, each working on different aspects, having experts from different verticals in DGCA and from the drone directorate actually anchoring those work. And the work is regarding, the first is on the airworthiness certification of the machine. Then we also, that's something which is out and it's quite harmonized with other regulations, and most importantly the FAA's regulation. And then we also looked at vertiports, because that's an important asset which need to be built and ensure that these machines can operate, and that's where it makes benefit, and those requirements have also been published. And under the chair of DG, we engage the industry, airports and the local administration, so that we are able to ensure that it's part of their city planning, that part of their airport planning, part of their wherein they identify the places where the vertiports can be built, and the specific requirements of that city, that landscape is identified and attended to. And another thing which we looked at is who are the people who are going to fly that, because we have existing manpower, which the trained licensed people, how they can be converted and utilized for the purpose. And when going forward, who will be the new whether we need to have a separate kind of rating for such kind of machine. So all those issues have been identified and have been issued as part of the guidance material. So that makes things ahead of, as the machine comes, we have those requirements available and they can be applied. And Then also, because this kind of operation has to be regulated, so we have requirements of about the organization, the ops specs, everything that's been specified. And now we are very close to issuing requirements who could be the agency which maintains these machines after they come into operation, how their maintenance would carry out, and who are the people, what are the different courses which the technical manpower, the maintenance personnel would undergo while for the maintenance of this machine. So last and the toughest part is having the UTM in place. That's where we are working with the airport authority and other stakeholders so that we build up the specifications for such navigation. So as we envisaged in first part is that it has to be a manned operation wherein the crew would be in constant touch with the ATC and flying on those safe corridors which have been specifically designed for such operation, but subsequently it will be all digital navigation. That's what we are working and developing all those this thing. But another thing which we have we are very close to achieving is BV loss operations. So that's what we have reached an agreement, and that will probably become perhaps would become a basis for having the UTM in place for the advanced air mobility. Thank you so much. That's my opening comments.
Thank you, Manish. Really helpful again to hear an overview of all the work DGCA has already got underway. But I think we're all very aware this is an international opportunity. It's a global opportunity. There is much happening around the world. We're very fortunate that we have with us Javier Verchedo from EASA and Casper Wang from FAA, two leading regulators worldwide who have already gone through many of the battles and the learnings to be had around eVTOL certification and all of the associated things. Perhaps we can get some useful perspectives from yourselves. Javier, if you could maybe lead off from an EASA perspective, what advice do you have for India on its road map now through to advanced air mobility, and how can we enhance international collaboration so that we all get there in the most efficient and fastest way possible?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you again for to Vicky and for DGCA. Let me just address the question right up front. I don't think I'm in a position to give any meaningful advice in this an industry that has not yet demonstrated its use as such, if you will. I think the only advice we all give each other is how we're progressing. That's where all these dialogues help. I wanted to reflect a bit of the earlier session, and some of you met. I see less manufacturers right now, but nonetheless, I'm glad in a way that I haven't heard as many times as I heard in the past that regulators needed to align, regulators needed to align, regulators needed to align. That's what we heard for the last 8 years or so. So clearly we are, I guess, we are aligning, or maybe something else is pressing more on the side of manufacturers. I think, again, and also to keep everybody a bit awake, yesterday I was at the rotorcraft or helicopter panel, and somebody hinted at the end, I forgot who it was, said something to the effect that helicopters are the poor cousin of aviation, right? So, which, I mean, regulators is true. I mean, it's not 100% true, I would say, but you know, the big airplanes matter. They transfer way more people, and helicopters are there. So I was thinking, how many helicopters do we get to certify every year? So it's about 1 or 2 by account. I mean, it varies on years, but I would say 1 or 2 new models. And then just imagine when 6 years ago or 10 years ago, you get this 100 companies full of cash saying, hi, please certify all this right now, and I got 5 years to do. And then as we dig into what the machines look like, we realize, because by the way, you have to add drones to it, we realize and truly, what were we really regulating? And as Joint Director General just mentioned, we're not just regulating the machine, because turns out we're also regulating new types of operations, the vertiports, the UTM, because we have the drones, how are we going to integrate it? And by the way, in retrospect to the companies that came to us, maybe could have been better if you had said you expected a market of 5 or 10 a year instead of 3,000 a year, because again, it puts the pressure on the regulator to do this really well. So that's a bit of what I think in retrospect. Now I think we can all look back. But at the same time also say that we've accomplished quite a bit. So we really, I think we have, there's solid regulations in place, not just in certification. There, in our case, for instance, and I think with others, we had prototype type specifications for vertiports. We are working on air rules. And we're also working on training. It was spoken earlier before as well. All authorities are looking for mechanisms to get trained pilots and then move them into these machines, sometimes perhaps coming from different angles. If it comes from a helicopter, if it comes from a fixed wing, how it will be adapted. So that's a bit what I would simply lay down. I think there's still a lot to do. This industry, much like, unlike other industries that came progressively, it has come a bit as a all in a whole. So I think we're all going to be keeping an eye on how it works. And God forbid, we shouldn't see any crash happen. And that's the key. And I think all of you agree that if something like this happens, we are going to get, there's going to get a huge fall, go back to what happened. So I'll leave it there and continue to hope for plenty of cooperation and events like this. Thanks.
Thank you, Javier. I think I detected at least 2 bits of advice in there, if I was listening properly. Maybe summed up as the old proverb, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. And I think what DGCA has done with the 6 working groups for me is indicative that it is breaking down the elephant, how many pieces at a time and what pieces do we need to address. So the international collaboration on that, I think, can certainly help. Maybe I can segue to you, Casper, on that point. Surely FAA is sitting back now and congratulating itself with the national AAM strategy and implementation plan published. Your job is largely done, isn't it, Casper?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. I think we're good here. So, no, I mean, along those lines, thanks for that, Jonathan, because I think, that national strategy is one way that the U.S. and India are very similar. As you may or may not know, the national strategy is an up-leveled document that the Department of Transportation actually put together. And being the Department of Transportation, they work with a lot of state and local governments, so they touch on things like infrastructure, vertiports. Of course, they work with the FAA and the airspace planning, and then obviously the certification aspect of it. So having a comprehensive national strategy makes it a lot, I guess, more straightforward in some ways. There's a plan that we have and we execute to, including airspace, infrastructure, security, community planning and engagement, which I think is an underappreciated aspect of getting public buy-in for eVTOL, as well as UAS, because the national strategy also includes vehicles such as UAS. So automation is one of the key tenets of the national strategy as well. So along those lines, having our eVTOL integration pilot program is a real-time approach that we can use to start to introduce eVTOLs into the NAS, the National Airspace. So our deadline is March 3rd, 2026, to select 5 eVTOL programs that will be flying in public airspace and integrating with local airports and obviously other airspace users, including our very rich general aviation population. We want to make sure that we're playing nice with those folks. The second thing I'll mention is a lot of our certification approaches is not done in a vacuum. So we work with our vertiports and airports office. So they have a vertiports engineering brief, which provides practical information on what might be incorporated into a vertiport design. A lot of that information leverages existing heliports, so converting a heliport into a vertiport and identifying gaps to use existing infrastructure instead of trying to create new ones. A lot of the renderings that I see in advertising material have a vertiport in a very public place in the middle of a city, which is obviously very convenient. But from a practical standpoint, that's not where existing infrastructure lies, because it's very expensive to have something like that in the middle of a city. Using New York City as an example, there's a Wall Street heliport that's right on the Hudson River, very convenient to get to near the financial district, but is still in a place where you can operationally mitigate issues by having a river if something off nominal happens. And then, of course, working with our flight standards on operations and training. So we have our powered lift special federal aviation regulation, which outlines the various steps you need to do if you already have a fixed wing pilot's license, what you need to augment that in order to get a powered lift certification. If you have a helicopter license or rotorcraft license, what you need to understand the thrust-borne capability. So, again, using existing licensing instead of trying to create something new and just trying to fill in a 30% gap instead of trying to do 100%. From an aircraft certification standpoint, we did publish our Powered Lift Advisory Circular, which talks about the approaches that the FAA will accept. And granted, I understand this does not address every single design out there, but for some of our U.S. manufacturers, it addresses, I think, 80 to 90% of them, depending on your design and the level of automation that you're looking for. One of the key tenets, going back to the national strategy, includes overarching recommendations, and this ties in with the question that you just had, Jonathan, about what we're doing from an international engagement. So we start at the big umbrella organization, ICAO. They have the Advanced Air Mobility Study Group, and it's a great group. I think they're really trying to solve a lot of issues, but they're trying to solve a lot of issues. So the elephant is not going to get eaten over the span of 2 to 3 years, which is the timeline that these aircraft are looking to fly. So in order to provide meaningful recommendations to the study group, we kind of proceed from a domestic standpoint to try to get these aircraft going. And that includes, international collaboration as on the NA network, the National Aviation Authorities. So for Asia Pacific, that includes Australia, New Zealand, and of course, the United Kingdom, and then Canada, our friendly neighbors up north. And then credits to CA Singapore, right next to me, or 2 seats down, for publishing the Asia Pacific reference materials for advanced air mobility, which includes very helpful information for a lot of states of registry who may not be states of design. But obviously, while there are limited states of design, there will be many more states of registry. So it provides good information and kind of a reference handbook, which it's designed to do, to talk about the various approaches to eVTOL certification. And then on the UAS side, we have our Part 108 rule for beyond visual line of sight. Manish obviously talked about the importance of UAS. That approach will provide a path for some of these vehicles, even though it's obviously not under the weight restriction for the Part 108, but having an unmanned aircraft or an automated flight operation integrate at the low altitudes can provide valuable information for other companies who may be looking to have autonomous vehicles carrying passengers. So that's all for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casper. And before I let our friends from EASA and FAA off the hook, one last question from me. What more can we do on the international collaboration side? Is it maybe more bilateral, or is it really more multilateral that increases that flow of information? I think from an industry perspective, at least, we're hungry for information. We've set ourselves a big goal here in India too, that we want to be a global leader in advanced air mobility, but we're kind of hungry for that information and learning, because I sense that might help us speed up. I might be wrong, but we already feel a little bit jealous that you sit there and you have a deadline. No, March for 2026, we're going to be doing X. Maybe we should be setting ourselves some deadlines. But what learning can we get that would speed us up? Are the current mechanisms enough, or is there more we could do you think?
Sure, I'll go first because Javier went first last time. So I think a lot of the challenges that manufacturers run into have to do with the means of compliance. So while the airworthiness criteria is a very public facing set of requirements, the means of compliance is much more challenging and in some cases has proprietary information. With that being said, a rising tide lifts all boats, and so having sets of industry consensus standards that new manufacturers, especially ones who don't have as much aerospace experience, they can leverage is really helpful. So the FAA remains really engaged from an industry consensus standards perspective in our ASTM F44 committee, as well as committees in RTCA. And this doesn't just apply to advanced air mobility. A lot of the industry consensus standards will be needed for Part 108 as well. So that's our F38 for UAS. And at these types of meetings, you have all aspects of industry as well as regulators participate. And the great part about those standards bodies is that it's very democratized. So everybody gets a vote, everybody can discuss. There's various working groups and sub-working groups to kind of share the information that everybody has respectively learned. So I think that's what I would encourage, new manufacturers to do, as well as regulators to participate in, especially those who may not, again, be states of design, but they certainly will be states of registry. Other things to consider is providing, shall we say, incentives for manufacturers to participate in your aviation ecosystem. If you look at, obviously it's not a very good comparison because they're able to do so with their geography, but the Middle East has provided a vast amount of land for certain aerospace manufacturers to go, and so people are taking advantage of that. India is a very large country. There's proven aerospace records here, and I think that having the ability for manufacturers to come here to use some sort of regulatory or even just a physical sandbox for them to do some of their flights. A lot of operations seem to be tied around large sporting events, which seems to be the interesting thing to do, such as the Olympics or the World Cup. So, those are also incentives when you get, large bodies of people coming in. So those are just some of the things that I've seen that have started to get the industry moving a little bit more. And, over to Javier if he has additional insight.
No, I don't have much more to add. I think we are quite transparent authorities. Let's recognize we owe it to the public and taxpayer. Like Casper mentioned as well, means of compliance are out. The more we learn, the more we produce out. I think my only advice to the industry is simply to be a bit realistic itself. Like, we are talking aviation grade level of products for a reason. Again, I reflect when we started, like flying cars, we're all gonna have one next door, and they're all gonna cost $300,000. I think it was the price at the time. That doesn't work anymore, and I think it should also be a bit of a wake-up call, a reflection on. Again, it's aviation. It's an expensive business. This takes time and is safe for a reason. And it's transparent. Now, I like the concept of sandboxes a lot. Again, maybe looking back, could sandboxes at the time have helped? We have adopted them earlier. Maybe it's never too late. In any case, also an important aspect, because we'll head to drones as well later, is remember, this is not the end result. Like, this will continue to evolve. So some machines will appear, and it will be version 1.0, and then next thing you know, version 2.0, and we will work together. So I think we set a good background, cooperating together, but also with the industry, and I think I would just continue. Thank you.
Thank you both very much, and again, you said not much advice, and I'm hearing quite a lot of good advice. And you manufacturers here, we do still have at least 2 manufacturers in the room. You need to be less ambitious with the numbers in the short term, I'm hearing. So we've got to be realistic. We've got to roadmap this, but I think we can still stay ambitious. And I think what you're saying, guys, from FAA and EASA is stay ambitious, but be realistic about how we get there. Sandboxes, we've been talking sandboxes here in India for a while. I'd like to pull in Payush from World Economic Forum on that note. I know World Economic Forum have been advocating for a sandbox strategy. where are we on that, Payush? Where and what do you think the sandbox strategy would achieve for us? And alongside global cooperation, that's another thing World Economic Forum has advocated.
Thank you, Jonathan. I hope I'm audible. So, just a disclaimer that I am not an expert, but I'm covering my colleague Vignesh. He works on the aviation part. I mostly look at the space portfolio. But to answer a question, where are we on the sandbox and how this approach can change the overall AM ecosystem? So when we talk about advanced air mobility, we have a clear demand that we have density, severe congestion, regional connectivity gaps. So, but still, if we look at the global investment patterns, most of the venture and late-stage capital has gone into the US, and roughly 80 to 85% of that investment has gone into OEMs. And but we see that about 35 to 40% is expected outside the US and especially Asia and India, if we look at. So we need to see that how we can capture value beyond just being a consumption market. Then, as like JDG, DGCA mentioned that we have already been doing work, including the focus working groups, the 6 working groups which you mentioned, that has laid important groundwork. And now the thing is, when it comes to sandbox, the approach is how we can take this momentum into more coordinated and mission mode manner, rather than just like talking about it, but like going at the ground and then implementing things. So I know that last year there has been some groundwork which was done and with some of the states, including Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, and like some other states as well. So the thing is, we need to be a value creator across manufacturing, services, and systems, rather than just looking at the things which we are talking about. And one more thing which I want to contribute to this discussion, that there is an interesting pattern that we have seen, that we see that clear demand signals in the region, but when we talk about the capital inflow, that looks at not just the market size but also predictability. So I'll give you an example from the space portfolio, like space sector. There was a national space policy which came into picture, and then there was clear roles were divided among InSpace and other institutional bodies. And now the thing is, they have come up with a decadal plan which looks at like how we are going to approach the whole sector in the next 10 years, and what are the clear objectives and missions which we have to achieve in a phased manner. So there's a clear mandate for InSpace to bring in private sector capital to promote the space industry. Similar kind of way, like if we can do some things in the aviation sector, which is not just talking about financial incentive, but the proper structure, that how we are going to incorporate all those things. So yeah, I think these two things, and like the important approach should be like going into mission mode, because we already have a active regulator. The industry participation has grown in the last few years. Then there are increasing interest from states and cities as well, and we have talked about how we can involve local governments and other relevant stakeholders into the whole discussion. So the only thing is we have to put it into a mission mode framework, and like how we can work on it.
Thank you, Payush. Yeah, I'm very glad that's your final statement, was to point to the need for things to happen on the ground and to engage the states. We're fortunate we have the state of Gujarat represented through Arvind Singh from Goosail, the state aviation company. I know the state of Gujarat is ambitious and keen to see things happen in the state. You and I spent some time on a bus, Arvind, did we not? Yeah. Heading out into the hinterland, looking at potential sites for sandboxes. So I want to return to that quickly, because I think it seems to me that there is a lot of potential that the sandbox strategy links everything we've talked about from a regulator and DGCA and all the aspects of the ecosystem side to making it happen somewhere on the ground as soon as possible. What do you see from Gujarat, this perspective of the state, that the sandbox could achieve for you if we were to locate one there?
Thank you, Jonathan. The first of all, Gujarat also have a Vision 2047, and aviation is one of the key factor where we want to lead or be an example in the country. So that's why we are very much keen in developing the sandbox experiment. We have a dedicated air base available, airfield, where we are ready to devote the whole airfield for the R&D purpose. And this will not only help the industry, but it will give the confidence in the whole ecosystem, which as a state we feel that because it's a new technology, adoption and acceptance of advanced air mobility in the country is a subjective matter, and plus cost is also one of the important factor. So definitely, if more and more sandbox experiment, more operators, manufacturers come there, then all the authorities, both at national level and the regional state levels, will have some confidence to make sure that it is possible to make India as one of the leading player in the advanced air mobility ecospace.
Thank you.
And
oh, sorry, you haven't.
yeah,
Go ahead.
and definitely we are coming up with our civil aviation policy, which will take care of all the ecosystem requirement of financings, infrastructure subsidy, vertiport development. So we are also in an advanced stage with the local chapters to make sure that proper infrastructure is there, then only we can nurture the ecosystem. So obviously machines is one of the part, but at ground level, vertiport or the right places is very much important, where economics will work. Ultimately, cost is the most important factor, and if cost is affordable enough for each pocket, then definitely it is a higher probability that the industry will survive, and people will make money.
Okay, thank you, Arvind. That's really helpful, and I want to start to pull in our manufacturers now. So there is advice flowing your way. Be realistic, stay ambitious, but be realistic. Engage with all of the key regulatory elements around certification, means of compliance. There is lessons internationally, and sandboxes could be where that all comes together. Do you see it like that, Payal? Is a sandbox strategy where these things come together to accelerate our progress?
Absolutely. So thank you, Jonathan, and it's great to be here. I've just, sort of structured my inputs. So first of all, I believe eVTOLs will, have multiple use cases, right? We will use them, what helicopters already do for private air charters, for private use of HNIs, etc. And then there will also be the air taxi business. But for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to primarily focus on the air taxi use case, because that's what's most relevant to everybody here. I think, as a country, given our geographical length and breadth, we have one very common aspect, and that is we have so many congested cities, and we have, airports that are at a considerable distance from these cities, as well as, tier 2 and tier 3 towns. So my recommendation is, given the fact that, we all want AAM to come in, but we need to do this in a very, very structured, unified fashion, can we collectively as a country identify a starting use case? Instead of trying to do regional air connectivity, medical air ambulance, airport to city connectivity, can we pick one? And if we were to pick one, which is something that OEMs, regulators, everyone will work together towards to actually sort of, make that happen. And the reason I say airport to city connectivity is principally because of the fact that there are, large airports, growing airports with increased international and domestic capacity, and this is not unique to one or two Indian cities. So if we can all have one common use case and then work towards that, I think we'll all be able to come together with some very clear guidelines of how to move forward with our certification process. That brings me to the point on the sandbox. So while moving people is still a while away, what's to say we can't demonstrate using these aircrafts from airports for the movement of cargo? It will help us demonstrate the hours. Airports are huge feeder hubs for cargo coming in globally that need to connect to tier 2 and tier 3 towns. And I believe this can actually help us as OEMs demonstrate our technology, the hours, etc., and then eventually start carrying people. Just to very, very quickly summarize, I think the topic was policy certification and global harmonization. On the policy, I think if we can draft policy on a common use case, we can then start, looping in other really important stakeholders, which are airports, real estate developers in cities, pilot training organizations, airspace management, state governments, because everyone's working towards a common goal rather than very different use cases. The next point is on certification, and here it is nothing but gratitude. I was at the Wings India panel just 2 years ago, and to see that the DGCA has, a type certification guideline that's already printed and published, and OEMs are constantly being reached out to for feedback. Plus, even operators are now being given guidelines in terms of how to induct VCAs into their fleet. I think that's the only gratitude there. On global harmonization, look at the price point India is building at. We are going to be significantly cheaper in terms of what we are building for the world. So, given the fact that we are going to be cheaper to build, given the fact that in our geography, we have different weather conditions, different altitudes at which these aircrafts are going to operate. So we have lots of test beds. We can actually certify these aircrafts as per global requirements because of because of altitude, etc. And last but not the least, I've just listed out some next steps that I thought would be inputs from Sarala. Number one, let's start involving the ecosystem. At the bi-monthly meetings that we have, with the ministry and DGCA, let's start having key representatives from various, who will be part of our deployment, so that we can hear their points of view as well and start forming those working groups. Let us start sandboxes, like I mentioned, first with cargo and then with people movement from greenfield and busy airports to city centers. Let's use the trade offices we have around the world to showcase what India is already building. We have trade offices in all the major embassies and consulates, and I think it's important that what Sarla, E-Plane, Nalwa, everybody else is doing, the word gets out there, very similar to all the information we're getting on global VTOLs. And let's have a strategy document in place by next year for India. Thank you.
Thank you. Great final call to action. Strategy document. We're going to take the US on and have an even better national AAM strategy document. How about that? Okay. Ganesh, my other manufacturer at the table here. Does the sandbox strategy, is that the start point for the national strategy that Payal just referenced, do you think, from your perspective?
Yes.
And I know we're running short on time, so I've got two more panelists to get in, so if we could be short and sharp, that'd be great. Thank you.
Definitely, I'm from CSIR NAL, and we know that from prototype to certification, it leaps and bounds the effort and the magnitude of testing. Here we require many things: transition flying, composite durability, high urban density, which is a challenge in case of a crash, not only for the occupants of the urban air taxi, but also people on the ground, loss of control. So definitely it should be in an isolated environment, free of any obstacles to begin with.
Okay, thank you. Professor Rajalakshmi, if I could ask you now to join in the debate. Obviously, not so much as an aircraft manufacturer, but the technologies that we're going to need in the ecosystem. in that sense, are you waiting? Do you have to wait for the aircraft designers and manufacturers to get through the certification process before we tackle all the other elements of the ecosystem, or actually should we be pushing these technologies right to the fore of that process?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Actually, am I audible? Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I think I am in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Hyderabad, and we have an innovation hub on autonomous navigations, where we are working on autonomous navigation technologies. And one of the primary the transportation sector that we are looking at in technology development is air mobility. Okay, in this section specifically, we are targeting advanced air mobility. I think all the points that have been covered, starting from the infrastructure, vertiport. Specifically, when we are talking about the heavy payload drones, we require designated locations for takeoff and landing. That is where the vertiports come into picture, right? And when we are talking about, right now we are okay with line of sight. When we go beyond 500 to 5 kilometer, which is extended line of sight, beyond visual line of sight, which is like 5 kilometer above, 100 plus kilometers, which is actually what Sarla Aviation, she was mentioning, intercity connects, airport to, tier 2 city connects. The beyond visual line of sight, the communication, connectivity aspects, real-time monitoring of the vehicle, how do we actually handle all these things? So I think these, the third very important aspect, the urban air, mobility, I would say the traffic management aspects. When you are going to have multiple eVTOLs or vehicles which are actually sharing the same airspace. So how do we actually come up with conflicts between the ATCs and this ATCs which may be designated for vertiport handling of multiple vehicles, sharing the common airspace, but at a lower altitude, right? So we are working on technologies, specifically focusing mainly on the communication aspects. That is most important when we are actually talking about the connectivity from centralized airport to tier 2, or when we wanted to do beyond visual line of sight or maybe extended visual line of sight. That is the key aspect, I think, traffic management and connectivity aspect. How do we handle that? That is the technology which is actually going to be the, I would say, the core, which is going to drive this urban air, or I would say advanced air mobility, enabling connectivity aspect. And we are working on it. We are researching on it. We are closely working with other universities. Specifically, I would say we are working closely with AirPA, which is actually with North Carolina University in US. Professors from there interact with us. They come and spend time with us. We go and spend time with them. How to enable intercity connect, specifically for eVTOLs. These are actually the core R&D technology development that we are focusing on, which will enable the advanced air mobility.
I think that's an excellent point, isn't it? We forget that one of the aspects of global harmonization perhaps is academia in this country talking to academia in other countries and all the research that's going on around that. We heard in the earlier session that the quiet revolution behind advanced air mobility actually is in the digitization and automation of traffic control and airspace management, and particularly communication.
Yes.
And the move away from voice-based communication to digital.
Just to add,
Yeah,
BB laws, recently September 2025, US has released the document. Actually, they re-released the document. I think that's one of the important guideline document for us to also work on the technology. Maybe as I also heard that we are also, DGCA is also planning to release the document for BB laws. So I think we will be able to actually come up with.
Yes, note to DGCA. Yes, everyone's waiting on BVLS. Poonam, last not least, the end of voice communication, the digitization of etc., etc. I know you're working in that field, so what's your perspective?
As Professor said, that this is the biggest missing piece of scalable, affordable, and safe air traffic management services and weather services, where eVTOL operations, where the safety margins are very tight and weather sensitive is very high. There are technologies, proven technologies, ICAO aligned, already available in the ecosystem. And I represent Microtower. It is an automated air traffic advisory and weather advisory system, which I see a perfect fit for the vertiports, because currently, obviously, for the it has been used in the US at the small airports, uncontrolled airports, and it's a live weather, 24/7 live weather and air traffic advisory. So here, what I would request when we are thinking about the whole ecosystem, we have to be a little open about the adoption of the technologies which are existing in the market available right now, and it has been proven because of the helicopter operations. And we do have in India also, we have 13 micro towers. One is in Gujarat also, and one is at Sahastradhala heliports. And this can, because for traditional air traffic controls towers, it's very difficult to manage the high frequency short haul flights. And if you have the AI it's fully solar powered and automated weather and air traffic advisories, that could help in the ecosystem. So yeah, my request with the policymakers will be to have the adoption of the technologies available also in terms of going urban mobility policy document.
Thank you, Poonam. I think it's an excellent point, and I love the reference to unmanned airports. I think if we're going to see the realization of regional air mobility and bringing many more airstrips, perhaps some unused airstrips now back into operation,
Yes.
that's going to be a key part of what we need to do. Yeah. Okay, so we have managed to get around our panel. We are only 5 minutes over time. But I thank you all for your contributions. I think that was an excellent discussion, and we have talked about many of the issues that really, for me, reflect how the roadmap to advanced air mobility for India is realized as quickly but as safely and as effectively as we can. And underpinning all of that, of course, in our industry is regulation and compliance with regulation, and we can only benefit, I think, from seeing that as a global task. So my thanks particularly to our friends at EASA and FAA. We welcome your inputs, and thank you for coming to this session to help give us some insights. We will learn together. I like to think in India we have an opportunity to show much of the world how to get there quickly with AAM and how we can adopt it and adapt it to our own environment. There is no market on the planet, I don't think, that can benefit more from advanced air mobility than this country. We have all of the challenges and all of the opportunities. So it's for us to seize them, I think, in our own way. On that note, perhaps I can ask our Director General to sum up and close the session for me. And again, my thanks to all of you, and my thanks to you, sir, for chairing the meeting.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, participants, for very insightful thoughts on this subject. We have been there at the forefront as far as regulations are concerned, but having said that, all of us know that only regulations will not be sufficient to get this off the ground and make it a workable product. What we need to do is, as was pointed out in the last session also, that go beyond on the various other aspects which cannot only be managed or directed through regulations, and take them on board and plan for them also. Because this is one area where I'm sure many things will come when we finally get on the ground and when we finally start implementation. And what is needed at the moment, I think, is that we try to identify all those things, have different scenarios. Right now, it's mostly on the technical aspects, the testing, the sandbox and others. We have not got so much on the operational aspects when we actually get on the ground and start implementation. And I think that is also one area where we need to see and we need to plan for. The different use cases will have different kinds of requirements and different kinds of operational issues with them. and identifying those, getting them right, and that will be an ecosystem where not only civil aviation, but I think there will be many more actors who would need to be aligned and involved, and many more rules and regulations which we'll need to look at and see that things work. So that is, I think, my takeaway from this, and I'm sure the path which we have taken and the way we are progressing, we are ahead of the game, and we have to be ahead of the game to make this successful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A vote of thanks for you. Thank you very much. Class, you are dismissed. Thank you very much.